This is the ultimate differential draft for Game Week 1. I guarantee you'll want at least one of these players in your team by the end of today's video. Sam Johnson is going to start our differential draft team. I've gone with him in goal as I do believe he is potentially going to be Palace's #1 for the upcoming season. Finished the season as the #1 after an injury to Gaeta. He's also been playing quite a lot of minutes in pre-season and kind of being in the starting 11. Not one of the players who comes off the bench or anything like that. He has been their #1 for the start of kind of pre-season. I think Gaeta is kind of reaching that age where maybe he's going to be like a second choice goalkeeper, and Johnson's finally going to get his chance to be a #1 Premier League goalkeeper. I do think that's going to happen this year. 3.2% owned. Sheffield United as well in Game Week 1 is a really good fixture, so I can't see any issues with him in goal for me. Nice low ownership. Palace are an exceptional defence as well, as we will come on to talk about a little bit later. They are a brilliant defence under Roy Hodgson, so you can expect plenty of clean sheets, and he is my personal favourite 4.5 million goalkeeper. Moving into the back line is again another player I'm very hot on, very keen on, had him in a few drafts myself as well. It is Pedro Porro. 3 goals, 3 assists in 15 games for him last season, joined in January. Didn't start the greatest, had a really poor game against Leicester, but after that built some solid performances and some solid FPL scores along the way. He ended up finishing the season joint top goal scorer among defenders with 3 goals, and he only played 15 games, ladies and gentlemen. So you imagine you give him a full season in a more attacking Spurs side, what this man is capable of. Well, we're going to have to wait and find out, but I think it could be massive things. Obviously, the first 2 fixtures aren't exceptional for Spurs, but after that, they are really good. But I do think he is a nice option to have. Super low owned as well, ladies and gentlemen. But below 5% ownership for this man, it seems like a crime. People are missing out. I think this is the chance you've got to go and get him on your draft, beat the curve, and he will get you some fantastic returns this season. Moving on to our next defender, and it is another player I do believe is going to have a great year and a little bit of a cheeky differential. It is Ben Chilwell, under 7% owned at the current time of recording. Obviously had an injury hit campaign last year. He only managed to get 2 goals and 3 assists. We are kind of used to seeing better numbers and better output from him. But the reason I've put him in here is Chelsea's fixtures are really good after Game Week 1 where they face Liverpool. After that, they do have a really nice run. I was a little bit concerned with them switching to a 4 at the back, how kind of advanced Chilwell will be. But I did watch the highlights, and there was a full match replay on network of the Chelsea-Brighton game, and the positions and the penalty entries that Ben Chilwell was getting in was like ridiculous. Like, he was instantly in my head, I was just watching it going, passing the eye test. Every single time it seems to be the ball would go down the left hand side, he'd be involved in some way or another, and I think he is going to be a fantastic option for Game Week 1 and beyond. I think he's going to be a super cool differential to have in your back line, because it does seem like everyone kind of has Estupiñán, Gabriel and Trent. Maybe throw Chilwell into that mix. You've got yourself a very cheeky little defender there. Moving on to our final defender of this differential draft, and it is Marc Guéhi. Now, I think you either go one or the other, Johnson or Guéhi. We've put both in here as I think they are both excellent options, and I wanted to highlight both. Guéhi, not the most attacking defender, but at 4.5 million, I believe he's one of the best, like, that you could get yourself for that money. Like, there's not too many other kind of consistent defenses within that price point. Yes, we have Pau Torres on the bench. We'll come to talk on about him in a little bit. But since Roy's appointment, Crystal Palace were the most improved defence under XG conceded, and they kept more clean sheets as well with Roy at the wheel. Now he's here for a full season as well. What can he implement on this Palace defence? Always had a good defensive record wherever he's gone, Roy Hodgson, and you imagine that is going to continue with Crystal Palace into the new season. So I think he makes really good sense to have as a potential 4.5 million bench option if you want to go down that route. Moving on to our first midfielder of today's differential draft, and it is a man who was a Golden Boot winner 2 seasons ago. It is Heung-min Son, 5.5% owned at the current time of recording, ladies and gentlemen. Only 10 goals and 6 assists last season, so has seen a price decrease down to 9 million. But the reason I'm very hot on Son is I think he's going to have a fantastic season this year. Ange has already been praising his kind of leadership abilities in the press conferences. I think he's just got to take that step up as well within that Spurs side, become one of the key figures that he was a few seasons ago as well. My only concern with attacking Spurs players, and I said this the other day about James Maddison, is the fact, what impact is Kane going to have if he leaves? Because he scored 30 goals last season, has been a key player for Spurs over numerous years now. So what impact is that going to have? It doesn't matter whether you replace him with a really good player. It's still going to take a little bit of time to kind of build connections, get the flow going, get him in the goals, etc, etc. Son as well has a fantastic relationship with Kane as well. So you take that away, is his output going to be diminished? Potentially. I think that's why a lot of people are potentially a little bit cold on him at the moment. But I think if Kane is here and is staying, I think Son is a fantastic pick at £9 million. Moving on to our next midfielder, and it is Jack Grealish, a player lots of people were hot on last year. Seems like they've cooled a little bit. People are kind of going for Foden. That seems to be the template way that people are going. But don't be sleeping on Grealish. 5 goals, 10 assists for him last season. And arguably was one of the first names on the team sheet for Pep Guardiola in the second half of the season. Was instrumental in their Champions League campaign. So you do imagine he's going to have another good year, building on that and becoming the quality player, earning that kind of £100 million price tag that he was sold to for City. You imagine he's just going to keep going, keep progressing, and I don't think there's too much competition in the side for him. It seemed like, what was his name? Oh, the young lad who they're trying to send out on loan. Seemed like his only competition towards the end of the season. Palmer, there we go, was kind of his only competition towards the end of the season on that left-hand side. We will kind of have to see how that one goes within pre-season, but I think Grealish is going to be one of those first names on the City team sheet and is going to do really well with their good long-term fixtures. Moving on to our next midfielder, and again, it's another man who's had a kind of really good year and then a cold year. It is Jared Bowen. 6 goals, 9 assists for him. Looks like he's still on set pieces, but has potentially lost his kind of penalties, which does decrease his value in my eyes, as I'm always banging on about this talisman theory. Get players in who are on all the set pieces, on the penalties, because they pick up so many extra points from doing that, and they're the key men. Obviously, I still think Bowen is a key player for West Ham, but I'm not 100% sure on kind of like whether or not he's going to be the best option. I think the reason I put him in here is mainly down to his pre-season performances so far. 3 goals in pre-season. You imagine if he can continue that into that Bournemouth game, absolutely starts flying at 7 million as well. Could be a very, very nice cheeky differential for you and your team. Moving on to our next midfielder and the final midfielder within today's draft. It is Luis Diaz, 6% owned, only 4 goals and 2 assists last season, but did have a very injury hit season, only playing around 900 minutes. I do believe I've had him in my own team. I've also got his card on So Rare. I think he's going to have an amazing year. He's got the number 7 jersey. He's also kind of can make that left-hand side his own and kind of claim it. You know, very similar to what Mane did a few years ago. Claim that left-hand side. Yes, there is plenty of competition, but I think that's there up for grabs for him to go and grab. I think he's got a goal so far in pre-season as well. So, you know, just ticking on nicely. I definitely think he'll be starting in the first game. I think it's more competition for the striker role between Jota, Nunes and Gakpo rather than Diaz. So I do think he's a little bit more nailed than the likes of the other players. So that is why he is in this draft. Moving on to the front line, we've got 3 forwards in today's draft. Didn't expect that one. All of them I bet you haven't, considered in your draft either. First one is Julian Alvarez, only at 2.9% owned, scored in Manchester City's first pre-season game, and I think this year is the year where he wants to prove to Pep Guardiola why he deserves to be in that starting 11 every single week. I read an article the other day as well saying that he is looking to increase the amount of minutes that he's getting at City because he doesn't want to just be a bit part player. I think as well there is a potential for a little bit of a positional change. We saw it in the second half of the season where he was kind of playing in the 10-ish role, kind of how City line up with that 4 behind Haaland. He was kind of playing in that role just off Haaland, so I definitely think we could see that again this season. KDB's injury is not 100% like when he's going to be back as well, so could be filling in for the first few game weeks while he gets himself up fully fit. Last season, 9 goals, 3 assists. For a player who didn't play too many minutes, that is quite impressive. You imagine if he gets more game time, he's definitely showed he's got the capability. Given the more minutes, can he get himself a few more goals? Moving on to our next forward, and it is a player that I've not seen anybody mention in the kind of FPL Twitter community as a potential differential, is João Pedro. Now I know what you're thinking. Brighton have loads of players who are attacking. Why would we put this guy in? Hear me out. The reason he's kind of come into my thought process is the fact that I watched that Brighton game with Chelsea in the summer series and he looked phenomenal, ladies and gentlemen. He looked quality. Got himself a goal and an assist. Obviously it was a penalty, but he did earn the penalty as well. For Watford, last season, 11 goals, 4 assists. Yes, that's in the Championship, but was in the top 99% of players for take-ons and carries. So that's something that is very, very good. Something that I think will impress De Zerbi as well. He definitely passed the eye test for me. He looks a real handful in that Brighton team. It is just a question of whether or not he is going to get the minutes. I'm umming and ahhing. At 5.5 million as well is an absolute steal. It doesn't matter then when Brighton's fixtures, do kind of tail off after game week 3. He could just become a nice, easy bench player. You don't have to worry about potentially replacing him. You could easily downgrade him to a 4.5 as well. Just a player that's been catching my eye so far in pre-season. I will kind of see and kind of monitor how he's getting on for the rest of the campaign, but I definitely think he's a player you should be considering. Now, the next player obviously is going to be the thumbnail man. It is Darwin Núñez at 9% owned. 9 goals, 5 assists for him last season. And the reason he's come into my thought process is purely down to that preseason game in Germany. 2 goals for him, and if you look at his expected data from last year, wow, this guy missed a hell of a lot of opportunities, and he only played 29 games as well. You imagine if he gets a good run in the side, can get himself going, this man could be cooking, ladies and gentlemen. I think James Alcott did a video about why he could potentially get 20 goals. That is a great video as well. Go and check that out, because I think it just kind of highlights the ability this man has, and if he can get himself kind of firing, ready to go in the mind as well, he could absolutely kill it this season as well. An interesting stat I managed to pull out was he was 8th with shots last season, despite only playing 29 games. That just shows the volume that he's getting of opportunities with his shots. Is just putting them away is the big question. Right, moving on to our bench, we're going to start with Flecken. Now, I do believe if Raya is sold, it is looking like there is potential concrete interest in David Raya again. If he's sold, I think he goes above Johnson as the #1 pick for me in terms of 4.5 million goalkeepers, 14 clean sheets in the Bundesliga last season, and some very encouraging data as well to kind of take a look at for him. Other defenders, we've got Baldock, again, just 4 million. There's the new guy from Luton as well, who's popped up onto the scene. He potentially could be a decent option. I think as well, you know, there are so many good 4 million defenders this year. It is which way do you go with them. Next is Pau Torres. I think Crystal Palace and Villa's fixtures kind of rotate kind of nicely. I think it's Villa and Palace. They kind of rotate really, really nicely. So I definitely think it is worth maybe considering a Villa defender. Not 100% sure how nailed on Pau Torres is going to be. Obviously, Ezri Konsa and Mings did a fantastic job at the back end of last season. So I definitely think there's going to be some competition for places within that side. But I do think there are very good options. Moving on to our final player of today's video, and it is Raheem Sterling. 6 goals, 4 assists. It was a huge drop in performance from him. Obviously, that Chelsea team was absolutely atrocious as well. Going through 3 managers, it's never going to help a player like Sterling. Good fixtures after game week 1 for Chelsea, but the reason I've gone for him is if he can get a run of games, get himself back in the goals. We've seen in the past how good this man can be. The 5 seasons before last, he had scored 10 plus Premier League goals in every single one of those seasons. So if he can get himself fit in that Chelsea team, get himself playing week in, week out, get himself back in the goals, he could be a fantastic option at it's not 7, it's just 7 million, not 7.5 million. Jesus. There we go, in the end. Got there over the line. Right, that was the differential draft. Let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below. If you have any questions about your team, bang them in the comments as well, as I will answer every single one. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your day.